Hello, it's Lee Cassidy from Tactile Technology, and it's our piece around environment on a Friday. So, what I'm going to do is just go talk you through what you can actually achieve with environmental sensors. So, what I'm going to do is share my screen now and show you what can be achieved. So, hopefully, you can see my screen there now, and on there, what I've got is a sensor. So this sensor can actually see a lot of different things from a single sensor. So it can actually see things like temperature, humidity. It can see noise and motion levels and many other things. What you can also do with this little section here, as long as it is because this is a Vicada sensor, you can actually add a context camera. So you can have an indoor or an outdoor camera that's associated with it, so it's looking in the area that the actual sensor can see. Now, the sensor itself sees around about 8 foot in a cone around itself, so 8 to 10 feet away in a cone shape, looking out, so it can see quite a distance around where it is. So if I open up the actual sensor and show you a little bit more about what you can actually see there. So first of all, we can see the humidity. If we select any one of these items, you can actually see underneath a history of that. So we can see what the level is currently over that period of time. So that's the last 24 hours. But I could actually look, say, over the last 7 days, and I can see what's happened to the humidity in that space over that period of time. And if I hover in any place, I can see what that humidity was. You can also set alerts. So we've not got any set at the moment, but I could say that I want to an alert at maybe when I hit maybe just around 60%. So I can either slide it up, or what I can do is type in the box, so 60%. And I could also say tell me if it drops below, say, 30%, because there might be an issue that we start to get static buildup in an area because it's low humidity. But we could also have the situation at high humidity, we get condensation if we're in a space that that the moisture could actually start to condense on cold surfaces. So once I've saved that, I've got now an alert set to let me know if it goes above 60 or below 30. I can also look at temperature again across that period, so I can see points where it's actually rising greater than it should be. And again, we've got set alerts for 16 degrees at the low end and 30 degrees at the top end. This is sat in a data center cabinet. So this is allowing us to monitor the temperature of the air around the equipment we've got in that rack to make sure that we're not overdriving the fans or getting too hot. That's going to actually cause problems with the equipment in there. And below, you can actually see points in time where we have had alerts because the temperature has raised. So if I click on any of the alerts, it'll actually show you the point when it actually alerted us. So as it rose and it clipped that 30-degree point, it actually carried on rising, and I think the highest point was about 32.2 degrees. And that was actually while some air conditioning maintenance was going on in the data center, and that caused that increase in temperature there. So we could see that quite easily. We could contact the data center operator and say, look, we see a problem here. The temperature of the air circulating within our cabinet is much higher than it should be, because it normally operates about 26, because we're looking at it on the exhaust side. So it is higher than the inlet side. So the air coming in is about 20 degrees, but coming out the back, it's much higher because it's gone through the equipment and been warmed. But as long as we know 26 is normal for us in that exhaust area, if we see a rise to 32, we know there is an issue. And you can see it was flat at 26.2 near enough all the time before, and then all of a sudden it rose and then dropped back down once the air conditioning servicing had been completed. So we can see a lot of things around temperature. We can also see raw humidity. From our perspective, that's not as important as the relative humidity, because we're more interested in the humidity tied to the temperature we've got at that point in time. We can also see motion, and we can see points in time that we're seeing these motion alerts. So any motion around that sensor will trigger an alert. It uses a passive infrared sensor, so it's only seeing movement of people, so warm bodies moving past or beneath it. It'll pick that out. So we can see at points in time where we've actually had some motion around that sensor. And if we had a camera associated with it, we could actually jump to that camera feed at that point in time. But these are actually outside of our rack, because the sensor is sat in the top of the rack, and it's a mesh sided rack, so we can actually see people walking past with that infrared heat coming through the small holes in the rack, so we can actually identify motion outside of it. The other thing is noise level, and noise level does matter to us in this context, but there is other contexts as well. So if we consider from where we are, you could see that temperature rise when we looked at a point in time, and that's because the fans would have started to speed up in the equipment because the temperature was higher and the equipment was trying to keep itself cool by increasing the fan speed. So we can see those peaks in there where the noise level increases up to fairly high level. So we're hitting 80 decibels with this, and really you need to be wearing ear defenders from 85 decibels upwards. So it is quite a dangerous noise level, 85 decibels in these spaces. But one organisation we've been talking to are putting equipment out in public areas, and their concern is that they may be fined if they go above 75 decibels with noise levels outside of the cabinet in those spaces, especially in residential areas. So what we can utilise this sensor for is fit it internally. We can then measure the difference in sound between inside and outside, and once we've got that level sense, so if it's say 5 decibels or 10 decibels different, what we can do is we can make an assumption that if we need to know if it's hitting 75 decibels outside, it will be 85 inside, and we can set that alert level to 85 decibels, so we know that we're actually at that level outside, so we can actually deal with any issues and get alerts, so we can sort out the problem, whether that's some kind of mechanical issue, an equipment issue, or it could be related to temperature, like we were seeing within our data rack earlier. So quite easy to understand that. But also that noise could be from other forms of equipment, and we might need to monitor an area to make sure that people are wearing the correct protective equipment. Noise loss is quite a serious one. I suffer with hearing loss due to working within the military and the Royal Air Force around engines and in data rooms with very large spinning fans, that can actually damage your hearing. So I've suffered with it from the past. So it's quite important for you to understand the environment around you, and understanding if you're hitting that 85 to 90 decibels, it is going to damage your ears. So you can keep an eye on it for yourselves, but also for your employees. I think it's quite important that you understand the environment your employees are working within, and you can actually give them that correct advice and insight into what they should be wearing in that environment. The next thing to show you is actually, again, in that health and safety area. And the actual sensor also will measure the amount of particulate matter, so dust particles, that natural dust all created from a manufacturing process that are sub 2.5 microns. And it measures it in micrograms per cubic meter in the air around it. So what we can do is keep an eye on that. And again, we can alert on specific figures. So really above 12 micrograms per cubic meter, it is starting to get worrying. People are going to start getting problems with breathing, and they should be wearing some kind of PPE mask at that point in time, SPF 2, SPF 3, to ensure that they're not breathing those particles into their lungs. So again, this can monitor those environments, especially in areas where you wouldn't consider there being a large amount of particulate matter, but it might be, coming through from a manufacturing area, and that dust particles are coming into that space. And it would be good to understand what volume of particulate matter there is in that space to make sure that your staff, again, are being protected correctly. Another thing is tamper. It's always useful to ensure that people aren't trying to damage these pieces of equipment or take them offline for some reason. And one of the pieces in there could be, because this will monitor for smoking and vaping. So someone who may want to smoke or vape in an area they shouldn't, and there is a sensor, you'd want to know if someone's tampering with the unit. And it's actually got accelerometers, so it's not relying just from a cover being removed. Any movement of the actual device will trigger that tamper detection and send you an alert by email or SMS, whichever you want to see it by. The next one, which is quite an important one, is around the amount of volatile organic compounds in the air. So things like benzene, ethanol, those kind of things, where you might have, say, a fuel spillage or an accumulation of cleaning products that could actually cause issues with breathing. And again, above 500. It's really going to be an issue for people, and they shouldn't be breathing that volume of material into the body. But also there could be issues around flammable materials and fire or explosion issues as well, with large volumes of volatile organic compounds in the air. Air quality, and this sounds to me quite an important thing these days, especially as recently we've had the first UK death of someone that's been attributed to air quality. So actually understanding the air quality index inside especially habitable spaces, so residential or maybe commercial office premises, I think it's really important that we understand the air quality level. And you could be at the side of a major thoroughfare and lots of vehicles driving past, and that internal space could be compromised by fumes coming from there. A lot of air handling equipment will take a lot of that out, especially particulate matter, but there are other things that could actually go through the system and end up building up inside that habitable space. So understanding those levels and the air quality there, I think, is quite important, especially for older people, say residential care premises and things. It's quite an important thing for us to know that. And again, we can set low and high levels on that so we can understand what's happening. But it's really more about understanding that higher level. So we've set it at 50. So if it hits 50, which is the problem space, we'll know about it at that point in time. Also, vape index. So with vape index, we want to understand if someone's smoking, so a cigarette, cigar, or pipe, not that as familiar as it used to be today, but also e-cigarette formats. So any of the vaping products, this will identify. So again, if you want to monitor a space to ensure that people aren't smoking there, because it's a place where you actually store, volatile compounds, a fuel store or something, or it's an area you don't want people to start to stand and use these products, again, you can identify that. Or even if you're running a hospitality venue and it's prohibited to actually smoke in that venue, you can monitor that using this technology. And again, because you can have that context camera, you can see who was doing it as well. So you can tie the two things together when you do it. A lot of this information is historic as well. So the platform will allow you to look back over a period of time. So you can look at any period of time by dates, by time, and understand what's happened. But it gives you that cumulative detail on what's happened over a period of time, historic as well. So you can actually understand what's happening. If, say, there's a gradual increase in, say, reduction in air quality, a gradual increase in the amount of volatile organic compounds in the space, or even a temperature increase, you can see at what point in time it started. So you can actually use that to identify the source of it as well. Hopefully that was of interest to you. So, I think it's an area that a lot of people are going to be more interested in nowadays, understanding what's happening in the environment. And, just at the basics of understanding the temperature and the humidity is quite an important thing. But also that air quality comes into other areas. So we've been in conversation with a number of companies that service or provide air handling equipment for warehousing and also for commercial properties, and actually understanding the air quality index and ensuring the actual service schedules take that into account is quite important, because it could be you've got a standard process for filter changes, but actually the air quality has been impacted because of that that fixed schedule, and you may need to change that to ensure that you get the right levels of air quality within the building. Hopefully you found that interesting, and if anybody wants more information, you can contact me through LinkedIn, or if you know my details, contact me directly. So I think this space is going to be really interesting going forward. A lot of people are going to be more interested in their current environment and getting a good picture of what's happening in that environment. So thank you very much for joining me today. Next week, we've got a couple more sessions planned. I normally silence my mobile before I start stream, but I forgot to then. So I do apologize for the interruption. But a couple of things we've got coming up next week. One is on Monday, we've got our Small Business Monday, which we're focused about ransomware and the issues of ransomware and how you can protect your business against ransomware. That's 2 p.m. on Monday. And then on Tuesday at 3 p.m, we've got Brandon Bright of Chronosphere joining us for In the Hot Seat, so an interview to understand his journey and career so far, and also understand a bit more about Chronosphere, which is a startup been around just over 12 to 18 months, and focusing on that observability space, especially around cloud native application sets and very large ones. And there's a bit of history about the technology, because it was originally developed to be used by Uber. So quite interesting what you can find out about both Brandon Bright and Chronosphere on Tuesday at 3 p.m. So please join me then for that. Otherwise, have a great weekend, and hopefully I'll catch up with you next week. Thank you very much. Bye.